This is a retelling of one of my Hmong stories that I told in Hmong. I will be translating it in English for my other listeners, and so everyone can understand. But this is a retelling of my first video story. So here we go. This first story was told to me by one of my friends about a camping trip they had back in 2017. I will be telling it in first person view. This story takes place back in 2017 during summertime. My friends and I, we were planning a trip to go camping up at Wishong Lake in California. So we made preparations, planned it out, got all of our other friends together, and we decided to go camp over the weekend. So we gathered up everyone, got in our cars, packed it up, and took off to camp. And as soon as we got to camp, we started setting up our tents, putting our stuff out, tables, and then we all decided that we wanted to go fishing at the lake. So most of us took off to go fishing and spent most of the day fishing. And when we finished, we all came back to the camp, and it was starting to get dark. So we decided that we were going to cook dinner, and we started playing music, talking loud, but we prepared a fire. So we were thinking about going to get firewood. So me and my friend, we were just doing nothing, and his name is Jake. So we decided we were gonna go walk around, take a walk, and look for firewood. And as we walk around the camp area, we picked up some twigs. We picked up some more twigs, and we brought it back to the fire pit. And we found a piece of log that was not too small, not too big, but not enough for one person to bring back to the camp. But one thing in Asian or Hmong myth or lore is that you should not drag firewood back to camp. I don't know the reason why behind that much, but it's a Hmong lore about that you shouldn't do that. But we didn't know. We're just young, so we decided to drag that piece of wood, that log. We dragged it back to camp, and we burned it, and nothing happened. Nothing happened, and after we ate dinner, then we all played cards, drink some beers, and everybody decided to go sleep. So one by one, or couple by couple, everybody started going off to their tents and going to sleep for the night. So we went to sleep. Me, my wife, and my two children, my two kids. We have our own tents, so we were sleeping, and it was around 1 or 12 or 1 in the morning, or in the middle of the night. My wife, she woke up, and one of my kids woke up, but they didn't get up. They woke up, and they saw a lady dressed in white standing at our foot area of our tent, because we have one of those big stand-up tents, and they saw this lady standing in her tent. So they were scared, and it terrified them, so they just stayed very quiet, and by the time they knew it, they fell back asleep. And they didn't wake me up, they didn't make a sound, they just went back to sleep. But in the morning, they also didn't tell me And we spent the rest of the day doing things, and then we went home. And when we got home, it that continued. They kept, like, almost every night they would see the same lady dressed in white and messy hair at the foot of our bed at home. And I would also get uh, sleep paralysis. Not every night, but it was it would happen occasionally. And I didn't see the lady, but they saw her. Then when my friend Jake, he went. Him and me, we both were the two that were smart enough to drag that log to camp without thinking. So he went when he came home, and he was driving home because he lived in Merced, a few, like, an hour away from Fresno. And as he was driving home by himself. And when he was driving, he started feeling like he wasn't alone. And he happened to look back in the rearview mirror, and he saw someone sitting in the back seat of his car, but he could not see the face because it was dark. And he saw that it was a lady. It looked like a lady, but he was haunted by that lady for over a week. And he went and he told his parents about it. Then his parents had gotten a shaman, which is a medicine man, and he did a ritual. And when in his ritual, he saw that he told Jake's parents that it was that we did something at camp. We did something at camp that caused him to be haunted, but he didn't know that I was also being haunted. But it didn't last that long. The spirit that was haunting me, she only haunted me for like a week or two, and then it just disappeared. After that, I never saw anything, but my wife and kids did. So they were very spooked and scared, but they kept telling me, but I didn't see anything. So after that, it stopped for me, it also stopped for him. This next story is told to me from one of my nephews, and it's about fishing at Militant Lake. And it was a sunny day, and during that time, they said that the fish was biting really good on the Madeira side. So me and my brother-in-law, we called each other up, and we were talking about what we're gonna catch and how we're gonna fish. So we got together and we got there late afternoon, and the sun was nice and bright out. And so we fished for about an hour and didn't catch anything. So we were just kind of bummed, and we were thinking about moving to another spot. So my brother-in-law said we should move. Then we were just talking about it, and we still had our fishing lines out. But out in the middle of the lake, we started seeing some clouds forming, like not too far up from the water. Then we heard splashing, and we saw that it looked like dolphins were jumping, and they were jumping. It looks like their dolphins were jumping out there. Then all of a sudden, the jumping dolphins were just like, they turned out to be like the classic coils of the sea serpent coils, if you know what that looks like. Then me and my brother-in-law, we were just stunned, and we were just like in awe, and we were just watching. And it happened. Well, when it started happening, they were out, and they were going left, and then the little dark clouds were on top of this thing, these coils, about 4 or 5 coils out of the water, and this cloud was just hovering above them, and they were moving together, and they were going left. So all of a sudden, they turned towards us, and they started heading towards us, and we didn't know what to do, so we just stood there and watched. And this thing got closer and closer and closer to us, then we snapped out of it, and we grabbed our stuff. We just booked it to the car. We took off running, and then when we got to the car, we threw our stuff in there, took off. We didn't even look back. Then when we got to the stop sign, out of the lake already, then we stopped by the road, and we started talking about what we saw, just to confirm. And we were like, wow, we didn't know what it was. It looked like the classic sea serpent, but it was weird, and we couldn't figure out what it was to this day. But the story is not too long, and that's how it ends. This story was told to me by one of my good friends about his trip to go fishing at 152 Los Baños up at San Luis Reservoir. And it goes like this. One day, my buddies and I, two of them, they wanted to go fishing for striper at San Luis Reservoir at the big lake. So we all got together. We headed up to the lake. When we got there, there's a particular area that we fish, and it's right off the freeway, but it's a little walk down to the water. So when we got to the water, we like to fish a little bit separated. So we were just an earshot away from each other. And when we got there, it was starting to get dark. So when we got down to the water, it's already dark. So my friends, they went off on their own, and I went off on the left on my own. And I headed towards the dam, and they headed towards the muddier cove. And I started fishing, and into fishing about an hour, and it was very dark, and I was just fishing. I caught one or two, and then I went off to a little bit more or further down. And at first I jumped on this rock that was right next to the water, and I fished it on that rock for a little bit. I was just throwing a crankbait, and then I started feeling kind of spooked, but I didn't think about anything, so I just try to keep an open mind and keep positive so I wouldn't freak myself out. But still, then I decided to get off that rock. So I jumped off the rock and went on a little hill next to there. And as I was fishing, and I'm looking, that night it was sort of a full, the moon was pretty bright. I don't know if it was a full moon. I couldn't remember. But I was fishing, and I'm casting to my left, but there was no wind. It was kind of like no wind, and I was fishing to the left, so I was reeling in from my left side, and out of my peripheral vision to the right, I see something pop up, like out of the water. It looked like a head, like a human head, popped up from the water, and when I turned to look, it dipped back down real quick. So I was like, at first I thought I was tripping or high or something, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this again, see if I see anything. So I decided to do it again, and I'm fishing and I'm reeling in from my left, but this time I'm paying more of my attention to the right of my peripheral vision. So as I was reeling in, this thing pops up again, and now I see it. Now I see this thing very clear. It looked like a human, like a head. And then I turned real quick, and then it dipped back down. And I was like, okay. So I reeled my line in as quick as I could. Then I decided to step back. And as I did, I just stepped back, and I was going to turn to leave. Turn back to the right and leave. But as I turned, I heard this little kid voice, like a little girl voice, say, "Can you help me?" And then after I heard that, oh boy, I took off running faster than the flash. I did not know how I did not break my fishing rod running. I just took off like a bat out of heck. And I ran, and then when I got to I stopped to take a breather. I didn't even look back. I was already almost to the car, and it's pretty far to the car. So I got to the car, and then I just waited for my friends. I couldn't get a signal to call them, so I just stayed at the car, and I just touched I was on my phone, touched my phone, playing with my phone games. Then I waited for my friends to come back, and they took another hour to get back. And I told them on the way home what I saw, what I heard, and they sort of just laughed it off. But I told them, yeah, it's funny until you see it or hear it. So the story it ends there. This story is my own personal story, and it happened a while back when I was still working as security for a certain company that I'm not going to name. But the story goes like this. There was one day that I was on a shift, and I was a security, the patrol unit, and they sent me out to this place out there close to Visalia, and it's a farm. And so I went out there. I got in my car, got in my patrol car, took off out there, got to Visalia, went to look for the location, and finally found it. It was one of the dairy farms, and I'm not gonna name this farm or the company that I worked for, but yeah, I found the farm. Then I started my shift, and it was all nice and quiet, just like I like it. And the whole farm, it was void of any animals, no cows, no nothing. And as I drove around the whole facility, it was just empty, and all the gates that were in there, that if there were any animals that was in there, that would be locked, but they were all open, unlocked. So I drove my patrol car, went around, did my rounds, and it was it got to about 1 o'clock, so I decided to take my lunch. And the highway, not the freeway, but the highway, was really close by, and you could still see it from where I was. And this place had a nice warehouse, or some place they put their tractors and supplies. But they had 3 floodlights, and the floodlights were pointed towards the what's that called, the cage, and the dairy part where they do the milk the cows, was also in that area right there, right in front of me. But I backed the car up, and I was sitting there at the floodlights at the little warehouse. I was sitting there with the car backed up to the warehouse, and the floodlights were covering me and all around me, 360. So I was eating my lunch, and I had my door open, and I think I had the car on, and I had my door open, the driver's side, and I was sitting facing the highway, watching the trucks go by. Every so often you see a truck go by, and I was just watching them, eating my lunch. Then all of a sudden, my stereo, it's like somebody just turns it on and then turns it all the way max volume. So I immediately looked to my right, and I was like, what? How did this stereo come by? So I go, okay, whatever. I turned it off. So I turn off the stereo, turn off the car, and then I close the door, and I look around. I don't see anything. So I close the door, and then I was sitting there after I put my lunch away, and I'm playing with my phone. So I was on my phone, and then I was looking down, and towards my phone. So like 10 minutes later, there was, out of my peripheral vision, I could see something coming up to the car, like slowly coming up to the car, right? I had a Prius, so it's kind of small, but something was approaching my car, and I could see it from my peripheral vision, but I didn't look up. And I just kept looking down, but I was also looking up at the same time, but I could not see clearly what it was. But I know something's approaching the front of my hood, right? So I just stayed there and let it get all the way up to in front of me. Then, right when it got in front of me, it stopped, and I looked up. Right when I looked up, I didn't see anything. It was just empty. And then I had this weird, like, electrical feeling. Like, it felt like I was surrounded by animals. So I started. I was telling myself, "Don't freak yourself out." So I put my phone down, turned the car on, and then I drove off. And I went to do a couple rounds. And then I did my rounds, and then came back, and then backed up to the same position. And this time I'm not doing what I was doing earlier. I was playing my phone, but I had my phone up, and I was looking straight up out of the car, so I could see everything, right? So I was on my phone for like no more than 5 minutes, and I see up in the cattle cage. I see this white thing just float. Looked like it was floating. Looked like a human or humanoid thing, but it was white, and it was just floating from right to left, slowly, like I don't know. It was just going slow, and at that moment, I locked onto it. I could not tell what it was exactly, but I locked onto it, and then I watched it go right to left, and then I had two things on my mind. I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna turn the car, take off, or just suck it up and go check it out, because that was my job. So I just chose the second choice. Turned my car on, put the phone down, and that this thing was still up there. So I had to go up a little hill and then make a left, because they have a little cement road that they put up there, so they could bring the tractor up there and bring feed to the cows when they had cows, right? So I drove the car up that little hill, made a left, and then made a right to go down that long straightaway. So as I turned right, I saw a cow, and then my headlights hit a cow, like just lit up a cow, right? That had its head stuck out of the thing to feed. So I drove past it, and I stopped right as I passed the cow. I got out of the car, brought my flashlight out, and ran up outside, like 3 feet away from this cow. And this thing was just like eating. It looked like it was eating something off the ground, but there was nothing on the ground. And I'm looking at it, and it looks like a sketch art. It looked like somebody took a pencil and sketched this cow. And then it was weird. I looked around, I didn't see no other cows, and then I looked at the cow. It didn't even pay attention to me. It just kept eating whatever it was eating on the floor. So I decided to go and get my car, and I told myself, if I go around and come back and it's gone, then it's got to be something paranormal. But if it's not, then it's probably not. So I went and did one round, came back, it was still there. Then I go, okay, maybe they're gonna go around again. So I went around again, and this time I'm not just going around. I went around to check for all the cages to see if they're open or closed, right? So I went around again, came back. This cow was gone, and no other cows anywhere. The 2 times like I went around, I didn't see no other cows, and there was nobody there, no cows, no nothing. So this time I drove around, did my rounds, and then I came back to park on the road facing out to the main road, and then I just stayed there. And this all happened around 3 something in the morning, 3 a.m. in the morning. And then I parked facing the road for the rest of the night, and I did my rounds, came back and parked there. Then when sun came up, then I saw somebody come to the farm. Then I took off around my time that I was supposed to leave. So after that, then I went to the office to talk to one of my friends, which is the one in charge of the guards who goes out there. They gotta find people to go. So he's the one in charge, and he has the knowledge of these locations. But the story goes, I told him what happened. He laughed. He just laughed at me. So I said, okay, you know what's going on. Tell me what's going on. Then he finally told me that this location, they don't know what happened, but all over 1,000 cows just all died basically overnight, and they could not figure out what killed them. So that's what happened. And he said that every guard that goes out to this location, well, every guard, doesn't matter who you are or whatever, you go out there for a night, you will see something paranormal or feel something. Something has to. It's almost a guarantee that you will find something, see something. So I told him, yeah, next time don't send me to these locations like that, please. But yeah, it was not a very scary story, but I hope you enjoyed it.